Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to access an EC2 instance in the private subnet using EC2 Instance Connect. And what is an EC2 instance? EC2 Instance Endpoint was a service that Amazon actually introduced some couple of months ago, in which it enables us to access our resources in the private subnet. And before, it used to be that if you want to access any resources in the private subnet, you have to have a bastion host, have a NAT gateway, have a route table, and some other host of resources you need to have in your VPC to actually access your resources in the private subnet. And with the introduction of EC2 Instance Endpoint, Amazon has actually given us the freedom to actually eliminate all those resources and the overhead cost. And with the introduction of EC2 Instance Endpoint, it has made it easy for us to actually access our resources in the private subnet. And if you are looking at the reference architecture on the screen over here, you can see that we have our EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint in the private subnet, which is our web server subnet in this case. And we have our EC2 Instance Endpoint, EC2 Instance in our private subnet, which is in another availability zone. And the EC2 Instance Endpoint can actually be used to access your AWS instance and some other host of resources as well. So it's not limited to EC2 instance alone. But for the use case of this tutorial, we are going to have our EC2 instance in the availability zone US East 1A, and we are going to use our EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint in the availability US East 1A to SSH into our EC2 instance. And looking at the reference architecture where we have our cloud engineer, who will be anybody trying to access the EC2 Instance Connect service. We're going to have our EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint service in the AWS cloud, and we are going to have our EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint in the private subnet, which is our web server subnet in this case, and it is going to be in availability zone US East 1A, and we are going to have our EC2 instance in another private subnet, which is the web server subnet again, which will be in availability zone US East 1B. And we are going to create some security groups. We are going to have an IAM endpoint policy for our users. And if we check that we are going to have the resources that we are going to use, the resources we are going to need for this tutorial will include a VPC, IAM, security group, EC2 Instance Endpoint, and EC2 Instance Connect itself. So without taking much of our time, let's dive into the video. And for the resources needed as well, we are going to create a VPC. And if you want to know how to create a VPC as well, I already created a video that shows how to create a VPC step by step. So if you actually know how to create the VPC, this type of VPC in my architecture, just go back to the video, in which I'm going to link down in the description of this video below. So let's dive into my AWS console and create the necessary resources that we are going to use for our EC2 Instance Endpoint. So we are now on my AWS Management Console. But before we do anything on the AWS Management Console, we'll need to install the AWS CLI first. So we'll go to our browser dashboard. We search for AWS CLI, install. So the first thing we are going to see is the AWS documentation. So we'll click on the first link. So it's going to take us to the AWS documentation to install the CLI. So you can see install or update the latest version of the AWS CLI. So we scroll down and it says AWS CLI install and update instructions. So if you are using a Linux window, you can use this link. If you are using a Mac OS, you can use this. And if you are using a Windows system, you can use this. But for this tutorial, I'm using a Windows system. So I'm going to click on the Windows link. So it's going to give a drop down. And you can see download and run the AWS CLI MSI installer for Windows. So I'm going to click on this link. And it's going to download on my system. As you can see at the left hand side corner, that's downloaded the AWS CLI. So I'm going to install it by double clicking on it. And if you want to check, you actually go to your folder, refresh, and you can see we have the AWS CLI in this way, so you can just click on it as well. So clicking on it is going to install the AWS CLI. You can see it's preparing to install. So it's going to take us through a series of installation guides, and after completing the installation guide, we are going to have our AC here downloaded on our system, and we can use it for the tutorial. So let's click on next. You can see the terms and conditions. So you click I accept the terms in the license agreement. So you go to next. You can see it's going to the location that is going to download the AWS. So we go to next. We install. And now you can see that we already have our CLI installed. So you can see completed the AWS command line interface setup wizard. So we click on finish, and we already have our CLI installed on our system. So after completing the installation of our AWS CLI, we are back on AWS Management Console, and I will show you the VPC we'll be using for this tutorial. So let's click on this VPC. We'll go into the search bar and we'll search for VPC. In case you don't have VPC on your recently visited resources, so we'll just press VPC, we'll search, we'll double click on VPC. So we are now on the VPC dashboard. So to see the VPC we are going to use for this tutorial, we click on VPC. You can see white VPC, and you scroll down and you can see resource map in this place. So it's going to show us the resources we have in our VPC. So we click on resource map, and you can see we have the VPC show details of the VPC. We have the CIDR IPv4 CIDR of 10.0.0.0/16. And for the subnet, you can see we have 6 resources in our subnet. So in the US East 1A, which is our first availability zone, we have the database subnet with the CIDR IPv4 CIDR block of 10.0.0.4.0/24. And we have the public subnet AZ1 of 10.0.0.0+/24, and the web server with the IPv4 CIDR block as well. And in our availability zone B, we have which is in US East 1B, we have the database subnet AZ2, we have the web server subnet AZ2, and the public subnet AZ2 as well. And by default, AWS is going to create a route table for us, in which this is the default route table needed on our VPC. But we actually don't need it since we already created our VPC. And also, we already created an internet gateway for our VPC as well, which I'm going to show you. And if you can see on the left hand side, you see the internet gateway. So we click on it, and you can see we have the internet gateway, but you can see that it is detached. So the next thing we are going to do is to click on it and attach to the VPC. So we click on this, and we go to actions, and we attach to VPC. So we are going to attach to the VPC we created. So we click on this, and this is the VPC, which is the VPC YT VPC. So we click on it and we attach internet gateway. So voila, we can see our internet gateway is already attached to our VPC. So we are good. So the next thing to do now is what? Is to create our IAM. So we go to our search console and we press IAM. You can see we're going to click on IAM, and so to create the IAM policies we need, refer back to the AWS documentation. So we'll go to our browser again, we search for EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint, EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. So So you can see the first link. You're going to click on this. And to know the permissions we are going to create, go to the left hand side, scroll up. You can see permissions. So we click on the permissions. To view the permissions, we need to use our EC2 Instance Endpoint, and you can see we're already on the dashboard. It says grant IAM permissions to use EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. And to actually create the IAM permissions, this is the permissions we are going to need. So we have the allow user to create, describe, and delete EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. Allow user to use EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint to connect to instances, and allow users to connect only from a specified source IP address range. This one is optional. If you want to create the EC2 Instance Connect from a specified source IP range, then you can actually use it. But for this tutorial, I'm not going to use it because there is no reason to use that policy. So we are just going to use the first and the second one. So to create the first IAM policy, we click on this. And you can see allow user to create, describe, and delete the EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. So these are the policies we are going to need. So we scroll down, and this is the policy itself. So we are going to copy this policy and paste it in our policy console as a JSON file, and we are going to edit everything we need in this space. So we are going to, anytime you see a red coloring in the permissions policy, it means it's something you have to change. And you can see we are going to change the region and the account ID for these permissions to allow EC2 Instance to create and describe EC2 Instance on our account. So let's copy this permission. We're going to copy it and go back to IAM policy, and we are back on our IAM dashboard. So we go to policy and we create policy. So we click on JSON view, and we are going to clear the statement you have in this place. We're going to clear, and we paste that one. So we already pasted the policy we copied from the AWS document. So the next we're going to do is to update the region and the account ID. So to get the region and the account ID, we go to this place. You can see, you come to this side here, the right hand side, you can see in this place, you click on this, and you're going to copy the account ID and you paste it in this account ID. You paste it there, and you go back to it and you copy and you go back to this, and you go back to and we are using US EC2 You remember in our reference architecture, we are making use of US EC2. So we copy this, and the region will be US EC1. So we have it here, and everything is good as for now for this. So the next thing we're going to do is to save this policy we created. So we'll scroll down, we'll go to next. So it's going to tell us to give a name to our EC2. So we're going to just use eice-sg user create, describe, delete, just to, so we will be able to read it and okay, this is what, that's why we are using this policy. So we scroll down, we'll click create policy. So it is creating our policy, and our policy has been created. So the next thing we are going to do is to create the second policy. So we'll go back to create policy, and we'll go back to the AWS documentation as well. Come back here and we'll scroll down, and this is the second policy we are going to use to create our EC2 instance so that the user can use the EC2 instance created in our account. So we'll copy it, we'll go back to the, and we'll come here, click on JSON, and we'll clear the screen, clear this, we'll paste it there. So for this, again, the first we're going to do is to update the region and the account ID as well. So we'll come back here, we'll copy the region, which is US EC2, we'll copy it, we'll paste it there, and go back there, and we'll copy the account ID as well. So we'll copy the account ID and blah. And the next thing I'm going to do is to erase this, which is the eice-sg. This is just to give a specific EC2 instance connect, but since we are going to use it for our policy, we are going to cancel it. We are going to clear it and put star at the end, so it means it is general. So you're going to, so where any instance connect that is created generally, we are going to be able to use it. So we scroll down, and for this condition, we are going to clear this condition because it is of no need for us. So we clear this condition. Let's go back to this and see. So we clear it from the space to this point, and we clear. So we are done. So the next we are going to do is to save. So we scroll up and give our policy a name, which would be eice user use. So this policy is to enable our user to use the eice in our account. So we'll scroll down and we'll click create policy. And like you can see, our policy has been created. So we have created the first and the second policy. And we are going to create our user. So we'll create add user. We give our user a name. Let's just demo name. Provide user access to AWS Management Console. We're not going to give our user AWS Management Console because we're going to use the CLI, AWS CLI to access our EC2. So we won't click on this. We'll go to the next page. So we click on attach policy. So we're going to give attach policy, and we're going to give our user and administrator access. So we'll click on this, and then we are going to add the other policies we created in some minutes ago. So let's go and search for the policy we created. So we're going to use eice. So this is the first one, which will enable our user to create and describe and delete. And this is the second, which is going to allow our user to use the eice endpoint. So we'll click on it and we attach policy, and we create user. So our user is being created. And as you can see, we have our user has been created. So we'll go back, check, you can see we've given our user the administrator access, eice user create, describe and delete, and eice user use. So the next thing we're going to do is to create a security credential for our user. So we'll click on this and we'll go to access key. So we are going to create an access key for our user. So we'll go create access key. So we're going to use the command line interface. We'll scroll down and we'll confirm by I understand the above recommendation, I want to proceed. So we'll go to the next. It's not actually necessary to give a description, so we are going to proceed, create access key. So this is the access key, so we can download it as a CSV file. You can see it's already downloaded and we are done. So we've created all the IAM policy that is needed for our EC2 Instance Endpoint Connect. So we'll go back to our that search button and search for VPC. So the next thing we are going to do is to create our security group. So we'll click on VPC again. So we are on the VPC dashboard, and the next thing we are going to do is to create our security groups. So we scroll down, go to security groups, and we will filter by the VPC we created. So VPC, you can see it's only a security group that was created by Amazon, for which it is a default security. So we'll unmark and we'll create our security group. So we'll create security group. So the first security group we are going to create is for the EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. So we write eice-sg. So we press there as the description. We choose the VPC we are going to, which is the white VPC. And for this, what we are going to do is we are not going to create an inbound rule. We are going to create an outbound rule for this. And the outbound rule is going to be SSH because we want to allow SSH traffic. So we allow SSH traffic, which will be this. And the custom, and it will be on a custom destination. And the destination will be the IPv4 CIDR, VPC CIDR of our resources, in which it is 10.0.0.0/16. And that's the CIDR block for our VPC. So that is what I'm going to use in this place. And after putting there, we go to create security group. So the next security group we are going to create is for our EC2 instance. So we'll go back to this and we'll create security group again. And we'll put in EC2 SG. We'll copy it and paste it as our description as well. And we'll select the VPC we are going to create in. So it will be this. And for this one, we are going to add an inbound rule. So the inbound rule will be from 22, which is SSH as well. But for this, it will be from the EIC endpoint we created. So it will be from the EIC security group. So we are going to select this and we scroll down and we'll click on create security group. And yes, we've created the security groups needed. So move on to the next, which is to create our endpoint. So we'll go to the left hand side and search for endpoint. This is the endpoint. So we'll click on endpoint and we'll move to create endpoint. And you can see we are going to give our endpoint a name, AICE. We're going to use eice. So we'll scroll down. I'm going to choose the EC2 Instance Endpoint Connect. We are going to choose our VPC, which will be in the default which will be in the white VPC. We scroll down. We are going to choose the security group, which is this security group we created. I'm going to choose it. And for the subnet, if you remember in our reference architecture, which is this, we said we have our EIC endpoint in the availability US East 1A, and it is in the web server subnet. So we'll go back to our admin console. We are going to choose web server code, which is this web server AZ1. We are going to choose that, and we are done. And we are going to create endpoint. So our endpoint is being created. You can see the status, it's showing pending. So we'll leave this place for now. We'll move to where we are going to create our EC2 instance. Because the next one we are going to do is to create the EC2 instance we are going to use. We put in the search box EC2 and we press EC2. And it's loading, and you can see we scroll down, we go to launch instance. I'm going to put a name, so it will be YT web server. So we're going to choose our AMI machine, in which we are going to go with the Amazon Linux. We're going to go with the Amazon Linux 23 AMI. So we scroll down. The instant type will be T2 micro. And for the key pair login, I'm not going to proceed with the key pair log because we don't need it. So we proceed without a key pair. So we scroll down and we'll click on the network settings and we'll click on edit. So we are going to choose our VPC, which is the YT VPC. For the subnet, if you remember, we have it in the, what's it called? We have the EC2 instance in the availability zone US East 1B, and it is in the web server subnet. So we'll go to this place and we'll put it in the web server subnet EC2. So we'll leave this one as default. So we'll go to select existing security group. We'll click on it. We're going to select the EC2 security group we created. So I think everything is good. So we'll go to launch instance. And our instance has been successfully launched. And as you can see, our instance is in the pending state. So we are done with creating our instance. So we'll move on to the next, which is to configure our AWS CLI. So we'll go to our desktop and we search for PowerShell. You can either use PowerShell or command line, which is the CMD. So, but for this, we are going to use the PowerShell. We are going to, you can see PowerShell. We'll click on PowerShell. Our PowerShell is going to load. So the first thing we are going to do here on the PowerShell is to check for the AWS CLI, whether it's already installed our system. So we type in AWS --version, we press enter. And you can see we have the AWS CLI 2.13.4. As out of the time of recording this video, this is the CLI version. So next we are going to do is to check for if we have an open SSH client on our system. So we press SSH minus capital letter V, we press enter, and you can see we have open SSH for window. So far we are done with that. Next we are going to do is to clear the console, and we are going to configure our user. So the next we are going to do is to type AWS configure, press enter, and it's asking for the AWS access key ID. So we'll go to our spreadsheet we downloaded the other time from the user, and we're going into it, and we are going to copy the access key. Go back to our CLI, we press enter. It's asking for the secret access key. We'll go back to our spreadsheet. We'll copy this and we'll paste it in. We'll press enter. And our default region is the US East 1. We'll press enter. We'll press enter. And our file has been successfully configured on our system. And you can see, if you want to check the files, you can see we have the PC to be in this directory, which is your computer user /del. So we can check it to confirm, which will go back to this. We'll go back to our PC, we'll go to the local disk, we'll go to user, we'll go to Dell, and you can see AWS. And you can see this is our configuration files. It's already on our system. So we can now use the EC2 Instance Endpoint to SSH into our machine. So there are two ways of doing this, and the first one I will show you, which is from the AWS CLI itself, and this is how it goes. So we'll go back to our VPC, and this is our endpoint, right? And we'll go back to our EC2 instance, and this is our EC2 instance, which is already running. We'll click on it and we'll go to connect, and you can see it says connect using the EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. So we are going to click on that one. We leave everything. We are going to choose our EC2 Instance Connect Endpoint. This is the one we created. And so we are going to click connect, and it's loading. And this is the AWS CLI itself, the browser version. And finally, you can see we are already in our EC2 instance, and you can see that by the private IP address we have in the so you can see EC2 user at IP 10.0.3.220. If we check our EC2 instance, that is this. So we'll go back to our EC2 instance and we click on it. You can see that is the private IP4 address, and you can see we're already into our EC2 instance. We can do that by going to the And the second way we can do it is to use the CLI on our system. So we'll go to the CLI. We're going to clear this. We're going to press in this command, which is AWS EC2 Instance EC2, sorry about that, EC2 Instance Connect SSH -- instance ID. I'll go back to our machine and copy the ID, which is this. So we're going to copy this, go back to our CLI and paste it in. We'll press enter. It's loading. And you can see for the first time it's going to ask that you're going to press yes, enter. And you can see we are already into our Amazon Linux 2023, which is in the private subnet. And you can see this is the IPv4 address. And with that, we've actually come to the end of the tutorial. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more AWS related content. And if you have any question or topics you'd like us to cover in future videos, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next one. Bye.